Let's kick off the week, everybody. The world's a better place because you are here to join us. My name is Matt Brown, and I'm the host of the Productive Conversations podcast. We are recapping the 11th week of the college football season. Week 11, only a few weeks to go before the college football playoff and getting ready for bowl games. We're getting to the nitty gritty right now. And me and Ryan Page are at it again to recap the biggest games from week 11 of college football. Ryan, hello.
How's it going? This was the calmest week that college football has had in several weeks. There wasn't a lot of surprises. There were some near surprises, which we'll talk about, but nothing crazy really happened. No outcomes, I should say, were super crazy.
Right. I agree, but things are about to get even more interesting as we're really only got about 3 weeks to go of the regular season after this.
Hmm.
So get ready, Ryan. So we'll see what matters the most as we shape up into the college football playoff season and bowl games. But before we talk about that, I just want to remind you to like and subscribe to the Productive Conversations podcast on all podcast platforms and YouTube. And don't forget to check out exclusive content regarding the show across all social media platforms. We're on Instagram at Productive Conversations Podcast, X and Twitter at ProdCobblePod, TikTok at Productive Conversations, and Facebook at Productive Conversations. And as always, don't you forget to like and subscribe to the Productive Conversations Podcast on all podcast platforms and YouTube. And also, don't forget to check out our presenting sponsor, Magic Mind, the world's first productivity shot. Take your green tea shot before the day begins, and you'll find that you will have a clearer mind, a less foggy brain. You're more focused throughout the day, and you are ready to take, and you are more enthusiastic to take on the task at hand. And through a signature nootropics, matcha, and adaptions, these ingredients help make you live your best life with the green tea shot. So go to magicmind.com/PCJune for 48% off your first subscription, 20% off your first one-time purchase. Magicmind.com/PCJune for 40% off your first subscription or 20% off your first one-time purchase. Magic Mind, reclaim your brain. So busy week ahead as we headed to just about the middle part of November. You are listening to a week 11 recap of the college football season. We have a week
Hmm.
10 recap of the NFL season available to you as well. This week we have a tweet cap on Tuesday as we recap the biggest and most trending stories across sports, news, entertainment, and culture. That's available for you on Tuesday. And Friday, we will also have another tweet cap talking about the biggest
Hmm.
and most interesting trending stories that will take place throughout the week ahead. Also in the middle, there will be a preview of UFC 322. Dolo and Jose will speak on that. That
Ah,
should be
sweet.
available on Wednesday, UFC 322, on Saturday night from Madison Square Garden in New York City. So lots to do, lots to get ready for. And let's get to it with
Yeah.
week 11 of the college football season. Ryan, as mentioned, it was not a lot going on. We had a lot of schools with buys, but definitely those who played against each other had to make their impacts. So as we do, let's look at the week 20, sorry, week 20.
Week
Let's
20.
look let's look at week 11's, sorry, let's look at week 12's AP top 25 poll.
Hmm.
The top six teams are staying the same, not one changed. Ohio State, Texas, Texas A&M, Alabama, Georgia, and Oregon. Got some things changing in the middle. Texas Tech climbed to the 10th spot. Climbed from the 10th spot to the ninth spot after a strong performance against BYU. B um excuse me, Texas Tech.
Yeah, Texas Tech is what's it called? They are now the eighth ranked team.
Yes, after their win over BYU. BYU also moved up to the 8th rank despite the loss. Tennessee dropped to 23 after their loss this week, and Washington into the top 25 at 24. That's really only the changes that were made. Anything that catches your eye, Ryan?
I mean, my biggest thing has been Notre Dame's just constant ability to be in the top 10. And I don't I just don't really understand it. Like right now, Notre Dame is at what, 9?
10.
Miami is all the way down. It's like 16. And Miami beat Notre Dame at the beginning of the year. We all watched it happen. Um, I obviously this will probably I mean, I say probably, it probably won't, but this will hopefully come into play later, like toward the end of the season, because that's when, frankly, that's when the rankings are going to start to matter more. We've had a few weeks where the rankings really mattered in terms of, jockeying for position on the list, but now we're getting to the end of it all. And that's where, the final rankings matter more than the week to week. But hopefully, this Notre Dame in the top 12 kind of settles itself because, I mean, there are teams all over from, yeah, from 13 down, I would say, through 25 that could, in my opinion, beat Notre Dame. Maybe not every time. I'm not saying Notre Dame is a bad team. They're a phenomenal team. But I think we need to start looking a little bit more at the head-to-heads. Um, and honestly, that's not just for Notre Dame. They're, I think, the biggest example of that. But I mean, Texas, Alabama, um, Oklahoma, as an example. Oklahoma's had a really good season, but they lost to Texas. So the fact that they're next to each other is kind of crazy. Texas is clearly better than Oklahoma, right? So, you know,
Yeah, and I
we're
also
not there
want
yet.
to correct myself because I was looking at my old notes from last week that were stuck on because the top five never changed. Mississippi went to
Correct.
6, Oregon went down to 7, Texas
Oh,
Tech's the
that was
one
kind of
at 8.
nonsense too. I meant to mention that,
Notre
but we'll
Dame
go.
and Texas are all up in the to make themselves in the top 10. BYU down to number 12, Louisville down to 19 after dropping 5 spots,
Yeah,
and University of Virginia went down 8
8
spots.
spots. Yeah.
And the ones
Um,
added were Pittsburgh, JMU, and University of South Florida. Our friends are back in it.
yeah, USF is back and JMU there. Those are probably the two teams, maybe North Texas, that are going to be competing for that group of 5 spot, right? But yeah, so glad you said that. Ole Miss beat an FCS team. They beat the Citadel. I have no idea. They beat some military academy down there in the South, and they went up. Oregon won a game against a real football team and went down one. How does that happen? Like, I don't understand how Ole Miss could possibly make the case this week in particular for beating Oregon. And they are only 2 points apart. But like it's little things like that that make people be like, what the hell are we even doing here? You know? So I will say we won't share this yet. We'll do it after maybe. But I spent the greater part of today working on my own algorithm to determine the best 25 teams in college football. It took forever.
Really?
I do
How'd you
have
do
it.
that? You want to
Well,
just share it now?
yeah, ChatGPT is obviously who helped me do it. But I had to run a Python search and then I had to, put in that algorithm that ChatGPT made. But long story short, it's super similar. I'm surprised at how similar it was to the actual rankings. They are Ohio State at 1 still, Texas A&M at 2, Georgia at 3, Oregon at 4, Texas Tech rounds out your top 5. Alabama is 6, Indiana's down to 7, Miami is at 8, Texas is at 9, Notre Dame is actually still in the top 10, so as much as I don't think they belong there, the algorithm disagrees. Oklahoma at 11, Ole Miss at 12, Utah at 13, Michigan at 14, Washington at 15, Iowa at 16, Missouri at 17, Louisville at 18, Pittsburgh at 19, Nebraska at 20, BYU at 21, James Madison all the way up at 22, USF at 23, Georgia Tech's 24, Tennessee 25, and then the ones that are on the bubble, the 26, 27, 28, which is I just included a bottom three essentially, are Illinois, Kansas State, and USC. So there you go. This was nothing to do with me. It was strictly winning percentage. We added a cupcake guardrail, which I was pretty proud of creating that. A bunch of different things. I can maybe once I'm adjusting some more, but I might even share it on Twitter, uh, from our account for people who want to try and use it. But yeah, I was surprised at how similar the algorithm was to the actual voters. But
Oh,
there are some
maybe
clear
you have a more
differences.
understanding of them or no?
No, well, it was interesting. Yeah, there's a consistency thing that obviously the algorithm really appreciated. And teams like Notre Dame, scoring wise, are very consistent. A&M, obviously, it's higher on mine than on theirs, and we've talked about this when covering their games. Is the same way. They consistently score a ton of points on their opponents. Like they are a high scoring football team. Sometimes the other team is also high scoring, but um, and that was something that my algorithm counts a lot is basically how much you score on the other team. Um, and so, whereas schools like Indiana, they have a couple of squeakers. We'll talk about that. They also have the algorithm really did push the strength of schedule thing too, more than I thought. I thought Indiana had a stronger schedule than it apparently did. So don't yell at me, yell at the computer. But apparently Indiana has been fraudulent this whole time.
Well, I appreciate your confidence. Maybe as the weeks go by, you might have something to offer and show.
Yep. I'm gonna run it again at the end of the season too, before the playoffs get announced, just to see.
I encourage you, please do. Seriously, please do. And maybe one day you'll get your own vote.
Yeah, yeah, that's what I do.
But until then, let us keep cooking. Let's do our thing. Let's talk about
Mhm.
the biggest games from college football this past weekend.
Let's do it.
So, what I first want to get into is the big game, Indiana versus Penn State. Indiana, ranked number 2, went into Beaver Stadium, narrowly escaping an upset, preserving and keeping their perfect record. They are now 10-0. Penn State, they fought back.
Yeah,
They
they
were
did.
down by 13 in the third quarter. They took a 24-20 lead with 6 minutes and 27 seconds left in the game. Indiana quarterback Fernando Mendoza engineered a dramatic, no timeout, under 2-minute drive starting deep in their own territory after a sack, and he set up the game winning touchdown. The decisive play, a leaping toe tap catch in the back
Yeah.
of the end zone by wide receiver Omar Cooper Jr., who got his foot under tight coverage with just 36 seconds left in the game. Indiana showed major composure when their season was on the line. Give credit to Mendoza's calm attitude in the final drive of the game, adding to the Heisman Stakes discussion for him. At Penn State, who's had a difficult season, an in-season coaching change,
Hmm.
they still fought. They showed heart, especially defensively, and nearly pulled off the upset in front of their home crowd, but they just gave too much time for Fernando Mendoza. But although they won, Indiana's second half collapse
Yeah.
really is a red flag, something to pay attention to, I would say.
Hmm.
And give credit to Cooper for making that big catch at the end. But Indiana stays undefeated. Penn State at least shows that they will show some fight as we go into the final weeks of the college football season.
I mean, yeah, the fact that Penn State's not going to make a bowl game, realistically, right?
Nah, man, I don't
I
think
mean,
they will. I mean, unless they win out and they win confidently, but they haven't won one game in the Big Ten this
I
year.
know
Not
that's
one.
it's not. Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, so that's crazy to think about. Just that we're in a world where Penn State won't even get a bowl game. But yeah, I would say that if you're an Indiana fan this week, or just Indiana fan in general, this week showed me anyway two things. Number one, I think Fernando Mendoza really ought to be the front runner for the Heisman. Frankly, I think he's probably earned it after that. That they should have lost. to Penn. The way that they were playing in that second half was atrocious. Penn had that game. He was able to pull the team together for one last drive, and really a lot of that obviously has to be put on his on-field leadership and obviously his composure, like you mentioned. So that's number one. Is I do think that Indiana's Mendoza is probably going to be the Heisman. He's certainly going to be a Heisman finalist.
So
Number,
can I say just
yeah.
just for reference, as the moment from the sports books, the Heisman Trophy odds, the four names that are there, four names that have been very popular throughout the college football season. Proud of us for having all four of these guys mentioned often this season. Good job. It's a good job, Ryan. It's a tie at the moment between Julian Sayin of Ohio State, the QB there,
Mhm.
and Fernando Mendoza, Indiana's quarterback. They're both just around 1 plus 160 for Sayin, plus 170 for Mendoza. Well, the
Mhm.
odds. A little bit behind them is Ty Simpson,
Yep.
plus 500 at quarterback for Bama, and then Texas A&M's Markel Reed, at plus 700 for quarterback. These final 3 weeks matter, and these whoever plays the best out of these three to secure a college football playoff spot, heck, maybe secure a conference, especially, I think
Well,
that will
yeah.
make things more interesting. But like you said, Fernando Mendoza definitely a major favorite. And honestly, he's had to do more than Sagan has.
That was what I was gonna say, and I mentioned this last year at the very end when we talked about the Heisman, how I thought that Ashton Janty should have probably won because he had to do more, and we see now where Boise is without him, right? Clearly, he was that whole team. Uh,
Mhm.
Now you could maybe argue Colorado also is falling apart without Travis Hunter, but the difference is they didn't win with Travis Hunter either. So there's that.
So,
But yeah, I think that in terms of who's mattered more to their particular program, it's clearly Mendoza. That being said, the second thing I did want to say and is important is if you watch this game you have to be real nervous about, frankly, getting the bye if you're Indiana. Um, this is not a team that they should have gotten this close to. I understand Penn is better than their record indicates. There always will be because they're Penn State. They've got tons of money, tons of talent committed to them. Not as much now, but before. So, you can maybe do a little bit of a grain of salt, but this close of a win at this point in the season does not bode well for a late playoff run. So if they can pull it together to get the conference title and get that bye in the first, then they really ought to try because I would be nervous about playing two games in a row in the playoffs, you know, like a play-in early bowl game and then whatever bowl they end up in after winning that first game. So I would say this was a big weakness. There's definitely,
you don't think it was just a bad game, though?
I mean, you want to say yes, but when you think about it, I mean, not to toot my own horn again, but remember on my list they were seven. And obviously I don't want to put too much credit in a list that I made today, but the logic of my list was about blowouts, about scoring. And the issue with Indiana is they're blowing out teams that don't matter. You know what I mean? Like they score a lot when the other team sucks, which makes sense. And there's very few exceptions to that. Illinois being probably the only real big exception to that. And again, that's not like they're a super good team. They're just better than average. Um, so yeah, I would say that I'm sure this was a bad game, right? Like you could chalk this up to a bad game, but you still have to look at how close it was. And know that the teams they're going to be playing in the postseason are better than Penn State. Like, there's not, I mean, I guess if they get whoever, James Madison, they can maybe get lucky, right? But by and large, every team that's going to be in the playoffs is better than Penn State this year. Like, and we don't even know who that's going to be, but we know they're going to be better than Penn State. So the fact that they got this close, I think should scare folks about their ability to play back to back to back, high profile, high stakes games in a playoff.
All right. We'll see that. We'll see if that's the case then. Good job, Ryan. Now, why don't we talk about Texas A&M and the significance of their blowout victory over Missouri? Texas A&M moved to 9-0, first time since '92 with this after this decisive win. The Aggies offense featured Markel Reed throwing 2 touchdowns and running back Reuben Owens the second rushing for 102 yards and 2 scores. Missouri missing their starting quarterback Bo Pribula due to injury. They bring in the freshman Matt Zollers under center. He was held to just 77 yards.
Yeah.
More than Justin Fields this week, but they got to win. They just got to win with only 54 passing yards.
Dude, the
Anyways,
Jets scored 14 points without throwing or running the football on offense.
that's
It
right. It
was
was
incredible. I
great
was
job
like,
there.
they'd be scared to kick it, man. Special teams, that's how we're going to win football games.
I have to say one thing we've been talking about what we've liked Texas A&M's offensive prowess, or the
Yes.
defense continues to get better. And it's one of the most underrated parts about this team.
Yep.
They tackled the quarterbacks. They had 7 tackles for losses,
Hmm.
forced 2 fumbles, and only allowed 56 offensive plays for the Tigers. But Texas
Yep.
A&M stepping up in a big way, becoming more balanced and more balanced powerhouse. Missouri, I think, is just a lost cause, trying to figure themselves out as the season comes to a close. But A&M looking like a serious college football threat at 9-0, and they control the SEC at the moment,
Yeah.
and they're very confident, as they should be.
I want to know who's going to be in that game with them at the end of the season. Because that could be, I mean, as much as me and you in particular like to poo-poo the SEC talk, Texas A&M versus Alabama could be an absolutely lights out football game. Like if
It
we're
would
just
be an
being honest.
important game too to really establish them once and for all. While Texas A&M has had some obstacles themselves, I personally would rather have Ole Miss. I just want something different than Alabama, but
Well,
in the
yeah,
words of
yeah.
just from and I shouldn't. Well, Alabama's this is their season return from last year, even though making the college football playoffs somehow last year, and this is Kellen DeBoer's first really good Alabama
Yeah,
team that
of
is up
course.
to Alabama standards since Saban left 2 years ago.
Yes.
So in that sense, it would be interesting to see those 2 schools going once and for all. But what I'm basically saying is, well, still Georgia's still in the mix, also with an easy schedule.
Yeah, Georgia's there. I think I don't want to discount
I
Georgia.
just want a competitive game, like you said.
Yeah, I think Alabama probably gives A&M the most competitive game of the three. I
Yeah,
think
and
Ole
Georgia already
Miss,
did beat Ole Miss earlier this season too.
right, Ole Miss would be cool just because it's different than Alabama and Georgia, who are almost always featured in that game. But yeah, I do think if you want a high scoring, like can't turn away football game at the end of the SEC season, you want Alabama versus A&M.
Mm-hmm.
But as you pointed out, just I had the stats up here. You pretty much mentioned them all. But the 2 sacks they had 5. They forced 5 punts. They had 2 fumbles that they forced. The defense is absolutely coming in to match the offensive prowess of A&M. Obviously, offense 38-17, still very much the bread and butter of this team. Um, but the defense is catching up, and that's a dangerous place for the rest of the college football universe to find themselves because that was the weakness, like we talked about a couple weeks back. That was the thing that if you could match them, if you could match their energy, you could probably beat them. But if they can start stopping you, then you're in trouble.
Yeah, but that I feel lately, right?
Hmm.
The quarterback who will get Heisman love might not win it, might be impressive as the season goes by, but not a big deal. Well, like honestly, despite his concussion today, Jackson Dart, for instance, had his
Yeah.
fifth straight game with 5 straight rushing touchdowns. Not only a rookie record, I believe that is a rookie record, and he's turning into somebody they could take seriously. A lot of people were impressed with Drake May coming out of North Carolina. He's now an early MVP candidate in the NFL,
Yeah.
right? So I bring this up because again, Markel Reed, as we read, the top four, was in the top four of the Heisman odds at number 4 plus 700. But as the weeks go by, Bro's legs and arms are more impressive. And I hope these next 3 weeks, and the um if he could secure the SEC title for Texas A&M, not
Hmm.
even Manziel did that. I think that's somebody to look out for as a prospect going into this draft. And I know Fernando Mendoza is getting a lot of love, but all I'm saying is the most interesting, if he could actually become a pro, right? Definitely want to see more games like this one in Penn State coming back on the road, especially and pulling it
Hmm.
off. But he seems to be the front runner. I just wonder. Somebody said if he made the pros, he'd be like slightly better version of Kirk Cousins.
Mendoza.
Yeah, especially because he's not a scrambler like most of the others now.
Yeah,
That's
I
what they
was gonna
said.
say he's not a
So
scrambler, which is the thing. As the Jets fan, I'm
we
actually
haven't, yeah, we haven't seen somebody stay in the pocket since the scrambler movement began. Not really. Cam
right.
Ward's been having trouble in Tennessee for doing that, for instance.
Well, part of that's because he's playing for Tennessee, but I don't know. My thing is, and this is something I'm less worried about, now that we have like 100 first round picks, but yeah, I was worried about that because we built this team around, a Justin Fields, Tyrod Taylor type,
My
which is
only thing though,
movable,
with the Jets with
mobile
those
rather.
trades, they too were high first round picks, Quentin Williams, Sauce Gardner, for instance.
No,
We just
yeah, I
have to
know
see
that.
if Darren Moohey is actually going to pick the right people, which is a
Yeah,
conversation 6 months from now. But
correct. And we'll talk about it then. But that was my worry about Mendoza, and it's probably my main worry about Mendoza over some of the other options that I've talked about liking at quarterback. Um, is that he doesn't move, and while I don't necessarily think that's a problem, most teams are being built around a quarterback who can scramble now. So that's something to worry about. But I mean, not every team, right? Um, I mean, you see plenty of teams where the scrambling happens, but it's not like crazy. Aaron Rodgers still has some success. Obviously, I'm not comparing those two, but he doesn't move like the rest of them. Brady didn't move, but he was obviously exceptional. Um, there's people, not a lot, but there's people. But
even with
yeah,
him though, you could
Marcel
argue
Reed though.
it was a different time, even just
Yeah,
5 years ago.
yeah, but Marcel Reed, he is to me of the people being discussed, the full. Julian Sane is too young. He's not going pro next year. That'd be insane. But I don't even know if he's eligible. But if he is, it'd be insane. But Marcel Reed definitely he's got the full package in terms of he can move. He can definitely lead an offense, both in tough times, as we saw in like that Notre Dame game. Going back to when they beat Notre Dame, that was a great comeback. That was a really close game, and he managed that offense well. Um, but yeah, since honestly, most of the games since then have been just complete slaughters, which again is good. But I agree. Marcel Reed, definitely somebody to look out for. I think his draft stock could go quite high.
We'll pay attention for sure. Alabama and LSU took on each other over the weekend.
Yes.
The Crimson Tide won by a score of the Crimson Tide won by a score of 20-9. Number 4 ranked Alabama delivered one of its best defensive performances of the season, shutting out LSU's offense by not allowing one touchdown. This is the first time since the national championship game in 2012 where that happened. Ty Simpson completed 21 of 35 passes for 277 yards and a touchdown. Alabama's running game was limited, only 56 yards on the ground. But if they could fix that, watch out. LSU,
Yeah.
who's had a difficult season themselves, struggled to sustain drives, committed 10 penalties, and went over 4 in the red zone. Garrett Nussmeier was ultimately benched later in the game. That's somebody who was a Heisman favorite, who's not and will not be. But defense wins again. Alabama's defense was dominant throughout, limiting first downs, yards, and keeping LSU out of the end zone. Alabama's offense didn't fully click, but if they could get that running game going, they are going to be more compelling to talk about as we close down the SEC. Ryan, it seems LSU's team has gone off the tracks for real, even after the
Yeah.
firing. But I think Alabama needs to fix that running game after this week. But however, the defense playing extremely well is a great sign for them.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that a leading contender for the Heisman preseason is just got benched. I think
In
that
a
should
game
be
that
the
that
end.
wasn't even that far away either.
Yeah.
They could have
I,
came back.
I think that that should be the end of preseason everything. There shouldn't be any rankings or any Heisman speculation or anything till at least after week 3. Because no offense, we're not. No one's got a crystal ball. It doesn't matter how good your draft class was. There's too many factors. Um, but yeah, that to me was the big story. Was their coaching is new. They couldn't pull it together even with new coaching. They're starting, new quarterback. That to me is indicative of a team that knows it's done, right? They're at this point, they're just giving people reps. They're trying to, see if what they can build around next year, giving people time to play, uh, that sort of thing. They know that this is it, and that's crazy because they had a lot of really high expectations heading into this year. And it is safe to say that they, like Clemson, have not reached those high expectations even a little bit.
Mhm. All right. Texas Tech and BYU, a significant game to talk about here. Texas Tech defeated BYU. BYU, who was in the college football rankings. I'm sorry, who's in the college football playoff rankings.
Hmm.
This past week, I texted you. They were matching Notre Dame at the moment. That would have been a cool Catholics versus Mormons
Yeah.
football game. But after their loss to Texas Tech, that seems a little less likely.
Mm.
The Red Raiders, ranked number 8, made a statement in a top 10 match. They handled NYU, gave them their first loss of the season, and took control of the Big 12. And then Texas Tech has taken control of the Big 12.
Hmm.
Another defensive story. Texas Tech held BYU to just 255 total yards, only 67 rushing yards. The best performance, Jacob Rodriguez with an incredible 14 tackles, 1 interception, and a forced fumble. I mean, even though defense there hasn't been a defensive player winning the Heisman since Charles Woodson back in the late 90s. But if Jacob Rodriguez, who's quietly had a great season for Texas Tech, has been their leader, could continue to have games like this, he'll at
Yeah.
least be a major prospect in the NFL.
Oh yeah, without a
But
doubt.
give credit there. And Texas Tech being so dominant on the defensive side, they too were matching the bit in the college football rankings. I think Texas Tech, we've talked about them a bit this year, but they're the clear best team in the Big 12
Yeah, I think so.
in this
Yeah, the Big 12
pseudo Big
was
12 game.
yeah, the Big 12 was definitely one that we kind of hedged our bets on at first. Um, but with Miami's collapse, now the
Yeah.
ACC is definitely the one where we're probably going to see an upset. Which that reminds me, are we going to talk about any ACC games or no? I don't. I didn't look at the rundown. So, If not, I'll mention it here. But while you looked into that, the Big 12 has definitely solidified around Tech. The question now is, are there any other teams, BYU, more than likely anyone else, right, who are good enough to be considered among the top 12 without winning? Because Tech's gonna win the Big 12. So is BYU, or I guess Utah, but honestly, Utah's lost to BYU. So really, is BYU good enough to be a playoff team even if they don't win the Big 12 championship? And that's ultimately what's going to have to be decided uh, on the field, right? But what was interesting, I mentioned now the ACC is now in free fall, whereas Big 12 started that way. There's a world
Hmm.
where Duke, this is true. There's a world where Duke wins the ACC title, like factually, because they're all so close together. And if that happens, the ACC would not get a single bid, not even an auto bid,
Hmm.
into the college football playoffs. Because right now, if everything stayed the same, because James Madison and USF are ranked above them. So those two teams would be the two added to the other three champions. So the five champions who get automatically added in. So
Yeah.
just something to think about. ACC and free fall. Clemson, obviously they're out. Miami's barely holding it together, even though they were once looking like one of the best teams in college football. I think I said they were at one point. Um, Georgia Tech had a couple of bad losses. Virginia had a weird hot streak, and now they're back cold again. Louisville just lost because they look like they were consolidating. So yeah, just would be kind of fun if all these people saying the Group 5 auto bid is killing the playoff format, and then two Group 5 teams get in. That would be pretty funny. But yeah, Texas Tech has solidified the Big 12, in my opinion. And BYU is the number two. I think there's going to be a rematch for the championship. And honestly, if BYU wins, I think there will be two Big 12 teams because Texas Tech has been phenomenal. Even if they're not Big 12 champion, they should be a playoff team.
And get your title from the Undertaker
That's right.
with that
Yes, I
Big
forgot that.
12
I forgot
and
the Undertaker works with the Big 12 specifically.
the awful WWE thing.
I totally
I
forgot
was
about that
driving
partnership.
today and thinking about, man, I've been really hard on the WWE these past few weeks. And you
You
know
have.
what? I said, and they deserve every bit of it. And it's going to continue.
But yeah, no, I do think that's I mean, I don't know. Have you got to see very many Texas Tech games? I watched this game. I watched the BYU game. But man, they're good.
Yeah.
Like
Especially that
I
Jacob Rodriguez.
yeah, and I mean other people I'm not actually all that impressed with the other guy. What's his name? Bailey.
Yeah.
David Bailey gets a lot of love on the internet. I don't know if I understand that. But Texas Tech I think they could be they're definitely a top 10 team. I almost think they could be up tied with Oregon and Ole Miss. 6, 7, 8, that's where they're in that line right now. Um I don't know. I feel like that could genuinely be a pick 'em between those three teams as to who's the sixth, seventh, and eighth best team in college football. So if BYU does get the rematch, and I don't see why they wouldn't, and they do pull out the win, Texas Tech could probably still go make a run for a national title, which would be a crazy plot twist if the two best teams in Texas end up not including Texas, but rather A&M and
Especially
Tech.
after this year. Well, we
Well,
miss
yeah, I mean,
Texas
this
this
year,
week.
I would argue this year that is the case. That Texas Tech and Texas A&M are both better than just Texas. But seeing the two of them play in a bowl game or play for a title, national title, would really be, I think, something incredible.
I'm excited, bro. I hope you are. Now let's talk and finish it up with Oregon's scare over the weekend. They barely defeat the University of Iowa. Oregon in a rain-soaked defensive slugfest. Oregon won by the slight score of 18-16 with a game-winning field goal to walk it off by Atticus Sappington. And Iowa pulled within striking distance a 93-yard touchdown drive late in the game. Oregon just had enough time left to secure and walk it off. The Ducks offense really struggled a lot throughout. They couldn't make plays. They were clutch. Iowa fought back, but they've had injury problems. They've had trouble all season long, and then the rain didn't help. But Oregon, Ryan, even though they won, they lost a spot in the top 10 rankings.
That was silly though.
Do you think of anything from this, or was this just a bad game, a poorly played bad game that clearly they can't have anymore for the rest of the year?
This was just a bad game. And yeah, the whole dropping, like I said, that was crazy. They dropped so Ole Miss, who beat nobody, could go up. It doesn't make any sense. Ultimately a win's a win. And I know this is the opposite of what I said with Indiana, but they're different teams, and I'm allowed to have different opinions about different teams. I think Oregon is fine. I think that this was not reflective of a genuine problem that the team has. Ultimately, I think what they do need to do is, I mean, just genuinely, I've felt that they've played good on both sides of the ball, and they've gotten better this year over last year of that explosiveness. So I think that's what they have to keep working on. Is we talked now a lot about the teams down south, and how they have a lot of big plays. That's kind of their thing. Um, Oregon doesn't strike me as, even still, they're better this year, but as like the big playmaker team. They, like Miami, are more kind of methodical, but we've seen how Miami has collapsed, and frankly, last year we saw Oregon collapse same way. So they just need to make sure they continue to have that spark on both sides of the ball, where they can make big plays in addition to just solid fundamental, like getting first downs. Because again, their stat lines are great. It's not about that. That it comes purely down to when you watch the games, it seems like they're just doing everything kind of textbook, and they need to be able to pop off a little bit. Because when they get into the last few games, when they all mean something, you know, when people are going to be coming for, for positions, they're probably going to have to. They can't just do it textbook. It's going to end up being a little bit more, you know, improvisation. So that's something I think they have to work on. But by and large, I think they'll be fine. I think they've been getting better all year at that, and they'll continue to do so.
Okay. Cool. I can't wait to see how it unfolds. Ryan, 3 weeks to go with the college football season. We'll wrap this up right now. Again, check us out throughout the week. Available is this week 11 recap of the college football season, in addition to a week 10 recap of the NFL season. We also have tweet caps for you on Tuesday and Friday,
Friday, yep.
recapping the most interesting and number one trending stories throughout the world across entertainment, sports, news, and culture. And then we have the UFC 322 coverage throughout this week as well. So you don't want to miss any bit of it. Ryan, thank you as always. We'll see you all next week, and enjoy what's left of the college football season.
That's right.